Good to have you back. It is the second segment of Good Morning Anambra, and in this segment, we are going to look at the NASS resumption and the 2019 elections. And to help us look at this topic, we have Dr. Jaja Nwanebo. Dr. Jaja Nwanebo is the Associate Prof and a lecturer of Political Science at Federal University, Okare. Okare is in Taraba State. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much, listeners. Good to come back here again.
Okay, welcome. I know you belong here. And then to help him look at the topic again is Mr. Charles Ifeanyi Obi. Mr. Charles Ifeanyi Obi is our public affairs analyst. Welcome you to our studios, Mr. Charles.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back here.
Okay. You're welcome, gentlemen. And I'm still in the studio with my colleague, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start rolling. Some political analysts have expressed worry over the activities of the 8th National Assembly, which they have described as the most controversial. And recently, some Nigerians have decried the latest postponement of the resumption date for the National Assembly from September 25th to October 9th, saying that it could delay the electoral process. And that's exactly why we are here, to look at it holistically, NASS resumption and the 2019 election. For a start, sir, how would you assess the performance of the 8th National Assembly? Dr. Nwanebo.
All right. Thank you very much. I could say that, like you said at the beginning, the 8th Assembly has actually best be described as being very catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
Yes. And I use this word very consciously because since the advent of return to civilian administration in 1999, we have never had it this bad. In fact, at the beginning of the assembly, I was really making some excuses and telling people that it really hasn't been easy, because between 1999 and 2003, the parliament was trying to have footings on the ground. And that was why we were able to have 4 Senate presidents within 4 years, or 5 Senate presidents within 4 years, or thereabout. And those changes and turnover actually were as a result of the unstructured process that was existing at the advent of civilian administration, and they needed to bite into the proper process of existing as a parliament. And of course, that was achieved by 2003, you could see, when Anyim came in. He was able to drive the parliament for almost the remaining part of the life of the parliament. And but by the time we came into the 3rd Assembly, stability has been achieved. By then, the wars of the 1st and 2nd Assembly to establish what we call the independence of the parliament has extremely been achieved. Remember, the Okadibo's days.
In the 3rd Assembly.
By 3rd Assembly, a proper process of establishing the independence of the parliament has been put in place. At the end of the 2nd Assembly was when the debate about the 3rd term came. By then, the process has been established for parliamentarians to stand on their own and to make avowments on issues. By 3rd Assembly, we operated on the Parliament of Stability, and it has really been like that. Now, the 8th Assembly is a new set of advancements. Remember, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th to 7th Assembly were run under the same political party, the People's Democratic Party, controlling both the executive and the legislature. And by 8th Assembly, there was a transition in the executive structure from the People's Democratic Party to All Progressive Congress, and then the shift of the PDP members in APC, taking over the leadership of the parliament. Now, creating some incongruencies between the parliament in its orientation and the executive in its orientation. Indeed, it has been classified by some persons that what existed in the 8th Assembly or in this particular 4 years that is coming to an end was the case of 2 presidents running the same country.
Now, wouldn't you judge that as a beauty of democracy? Coming to you, Chasobi.
I quite agree with you. What we are saying in the current dispensation is actually the play of democracy in action. Okay, he made mention events in the past in the National Assembly where the executive and the legislature were being run by the same political party. Currently, what we have a transition. We are having those who came with a change mantra and having to be checked by Nigerians, and equally the legislators, because the legislators are representing the Nigerians. Okay, and I give it to the legislature, current National Assembly, members of the National Assembly, for being bold enough, okay, not to be controlled wholly. There is influence, of course, but to an extent, I want to tell you that the National Assembly of today is practicing what it ought to be: independence. Okay, they are trying to checkmate the leaders, the executive, every other part of the government. Okay, so that's what we're having today. And so when you have such situation, there is sort of incongruence. Okay, there will be disagreements.
Period to the defection by Saraki to the PDP, we knew that Saraki was from the APC. You talked about the independence of the parties involved. Okay. Do you think, based on what you're saying about democracy, do you think that leadership was just for the independence of the National Assembly and not the personal interests of whosoever that is leading that Senate?
It is not for Saraki interests. Okay? What we are having today is not about Saraki. It is about the National Assembly and democracy, where the president says, this is what I want to appoint. And the National Assembly will say, let us look at his credentials, let us look at his qualifications, let us look at how deserving this is. And they can say, please, Your Excellency, we feel you should take away this and put this. The budget came up, you saw how it was. It's been even up to date. They've been debating on, and waiting for approval. So, though there is the consequence is that the consequence of having such a situation is that it will slow down the performance, it will slow down the leadership. But yes,
let me bring.
Okay. On there, please. Want to, that the National Assemblies are resuming today, and the House of Representatives has suspended their own resumption. They said that the members of the House of Representatives will suspend legislative activities for 1 day on Tuesday, that's today, to mourn their late colleague, Mrs. Funke Adedoyin. That's Funke Adedoyin on our screen now. And we want to commiserate with the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, and pray for the repose of the soul of Funke Adedoyin. Okay, moving on now. You wanted to say something?
Yes. Honorable seems he doesn't agree with Mr. Ifeanyi when it comes to this issue of the democracy of the National Assembly. Looking at what we have in 2015, where PDP members actually and some APC members were the people that voted for the new Senate. Do you hold the same view of the democratic independence of the Senate and other parts of the National Assembly?
No, it's not a case of agreeing on the view or not. Now look at the issue. There are principles that guide what we call the intergovernmental activities. The executive-legislative relations became so hot and skewed under this present era. It is not the case of, like the question you're asking, I wouldn't want to see it as Saraki in selfish interest. Okay. I would rather want to see it as the inability of that two arms of government to understand the cross of their functioning. There is, remember, the newest of the entire arms of government in Nigeria is the parliament.
Yes, exactly.
Because all the while we've been having the executive, we've been having judiciary. Currently, the parliament in its transitory position moved from the parliament of the ruling party. Remember when I say in quote, Saraki was wearing the gown of APC, but was fully from the beginning to the end a member of PDP.
Of course, some of us see it as a smart one.
Simple.
That having seen that the APC will produce majority in the House, he smartly moved to APC.
And then what they did again
was politics.
And what again they did, which affected the House, is as you can see, this is the first time on the record where in the structure of the leadership of the parliament, two political parties that are not in coalition
Are leading the
are leading the parliament. Therefore, you now see the leadership of the National Assembly under APC, supported and managed by PDP. Now, ask the question on the principles of democracy. What then was the revolving interest that brought what could be the two contending political parties into harmony in the parliament against the executive of the same party that is supposed to be running the two houses? Remember, something is not really very clear. I don't want to go back.
Okay,
to
let's talk about it. Let's because there appear to be so many unresolved issues.
He raised something that interests me so much right now.
I'm coming, please. I said that there appear to be so many unresolved issues between the executive and the legislature. So just let's generally look at the relationship between these two arms of government. Is it cordial? Considering this, that of the 8th Assembly with the executive, is it cordial? Is it going to, produce a good relationship that could give us 2019 election in one piece?
I would say what we have is a cordial relationship. It is ideal of a national leadership, so to say, because when you have the executive having 100% influence on the legislation, then you don't have a cordial relationship. It is not ideal. It is not supposed to be so. Okay, what we are supposed to have is these people, cordial in quotes. Okay, these people, they are doing their duty, and their duty statutorily is check the actions of the federal government, run democracy. This is where democracy is domiciled. As a matter of fact, National Assembly is the citadel of democracy in Nigeria, in every nation. Okay, the parliament. Okay, so we have the executive who can carry out some excesses. Okay, and this will say, please, this is not democratic. Come back. They check them. They check every one of us. So I think what we're having today is cordial. They have the temerity to say, please.
What they will say that the friction between these two assemblies can delay the process of development
and good governance.
In fact, we use. Let us begin from the language of cordiality.
Okay.
It is cordial not only when we are personally friends. Okay. Institutional cordiality goes with some structural arrangements. There are patterns of relationship that are designed to exist between the parliament and the executive. If they are all sleeping in the same bed and they are going outside that structure of their relationship, then it's not cordial. As it stands, we don't even think about it being cordial. What we look at it is not being productive. The structure and pattern of relationship between the parliament and the executive, the parliament of this 8th Assembly and the executive, was not a very good thing to enhance governance and democratic.
They were supposed to complement.
Okay, so
sorry. I want to just express it a little bit. When the executive comes up with a recommendation, it is the duty of the parliament to look at it technically.
Dissect it.
All right. When the executive comes up with a bill, and the parliament is not looking at it, then it is not shake. It becomes a shake when the items are on the table. No, you do this, you don't do. Let us go back to the issue of budget. The structure and history of budget really does not allow the parliament to create new projects. It allows them to vet the proposal of the National Assembly. What we have in this budget, the parliament rebudgeted.
Sorry, when you say the parliament we budgeted, I am representing, let me take for example, I'm a senator or a member of the House, I'm representing a particular constituency, and I believe that by your budget, you didn't represent me as it should be.
You raise it, you don't put it. You just go and look, go and read up budget and budgetary processes. Now, first of all, the language of lobby came in because the parliamentarians are expected with hindsight into what is coming to walk into the executive order areas and make sure that their interests are placed. Even when Chubo Kadibo was the president of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he was walking towards the bridge across Anambra River, he didn't just sit in the comfort of his office as the president of the Senate to put the bridge. He still made the executive.
What we're talking about now is budget planning. Where we have
No, not budget planning.
No, not budget planning.
Not
We're talking about budget
We're talking
planning.
about the process itself.
No, let's look at the one that is staring on our face now. And because I know that on August 27, 2018, Nigerians woke up to the news that the Joint Committee of the National Assembly has endorsed 143, is it 42 or 45? 143 billion naira budget for election. Okay, to the disappointment of many Nigerians that felt that the money was just too much for just one election.
Yes.
242.
No, is it 200 or 143?
242. That's the budget by INEC.
INEC
Yes,
budget for the
242
2019 election. Okay, so what do you think that really happened? Because all of us were saying that no, this is just too much for one election, and all of a sudden the Joint Committee passed it.
That's exactly where I expect to see the parliament working. Because the question one would have asked the parliament that is working is to, instead of just sitting there and approving budget as they bring it every year, to ask the pertinent question: how do we really, the executive, how do we really get the election processes, election instruments, election activities organized in such a manner to begin to consume less money? Now, what they did was to look at the document that was brought by the executive. One would have expected them, where their work comes here, is to say, look, this kind of 200 and some fraction billion every 4 years is not healthy. We don't expect them to say, no, it's too small, we'll make it 500. No, it's too big, we'll make it 100. Because they are not the ones that are using that. That's why it is not the fault of the parliament that the budget is big. That was what was submitted by the INEC. The work of the parliament this time is to look at it step by step. Now, in the area of budget I'm talking about it.
Did they look at it step by step?
No, I think they did, but then they did, but look at what they did. Look at what happens in this election. I can take it to the bank that by this 2019 election, those laptops that we used in the 2019 election, we are going to buy laptops for the entire polling stations in Nigeria again. Maybe card readers are being brought again. So now the question is, where is the laptop that we used last time?
Where was the laptop, Mr. Charles? Because you are in custody of it.
That is where.
Well, let's talk about this now. Huh? You see, when you talk about the budget for election, we're already holding the National Assembly responsible for the delays, the budgets, federal government budgets for 2018, the election amendments, Act amendments, Electoral Act amendments. They are already being seen as slowing down the performance of the government. And you're still talking about the budgets submitted by INEC. And when they said we have to buy some new vehicle, we have to buy laptops, we have to these electronic means and stuff. So you see that I think after looking at this is when you say every year, this is the first time we're having up to that amount in the history of Nigeria. I wouldn't use the word extravagant.
I'm not coming in, but this is the first time you are having a conversion rate of $365 naira per dollar to do election. Until you put it that way.
I'm trying to say that. Excuse me. No. I'm trying to say that the National Assembly considered all this. They put all this into consideration to say, okay, you brought this, and we're looking at the circumstances, Okay, let's go with it.
Okay, now
Okay,
let's.
so they approved it.
Let's begin to round up.
Okay.
When we talk about the 2019 elections and what NASS is doing, NASS, they are reconvening to their House of Reps. We'll reconvene tomorrow. What are we looking forward to? What are we seeing? The primaries have just ended. Are we seeing a better management of issues before the election?
Certainly there will be. Okay, we were supposed to resume by 25th of September, but because of primary elections and stuff, they said, okay, let's go back to 9th of October. And you see also that this shift had given room for dousing tension in the National Assembly. That time there were lots of tension with the defection of surrounding defection of some lawmakers, including the Senate President and the National Assembly, House of Reps Speaker. But at this time, things will be going normal. There's no clamor again for impeach him, remove him, let's do this. So they're going back to face issues of the budget and all that.
We are dealing with a set of people that you cannot predict. The tension is not over. The only thing there, the only thing there is that I pray that these guys, or let me use the word, these characters in the National Assembly should be able to distill between politics and government. What we need as Nigerians is governance. What they do is politics. Of course, politics helps governance. But if politics begins to hinder governance, then something is fundamentally wrong.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You have to distinguish between these two, politics and governance, for you to be able to, for us to be able to have good development in the nation, and perhaps good election come 2019. That's exactly what we have looked at, the National Assembly and the 2019 election. Thank you very much for coming, Dr. Jaja Nwanebo, Associate Prof and Lecturer of Political Science at Federal University, Wukari. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so very much. My pleasure. Once
Thank
again, my
you.
pleasure.
And it's glad to hear that you're on sabbatical leave with us here at Anambra. So we'll have you always here. Okay, and you will Mr. Charles Ifeanyi Obi, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, ABS, once again. Thank you for having me. I look
right.
on to being here some other time again.
All right. Welcome. And as usual, Dave, we'll have to make a way for the news that is coming at 9 o'clock and the sports that will follow thereafter.
And from me, it's been exciting having you join us since morning, discussing important issues and making your own contributions to a better Nigeria. Let's move as you continue to make those positive things happen in your own society.
Yeah. Thank you.